context of white supremacy, Gus T Renegade in for another program. I try not to apologize when things happen that are beyond my control. As a victim of white supremacy, I had tech difficulties. Not having a computer reared its ugly head again. But thank you, everyone, for being consistent, hanging in, and just being a little patient. If you would like to expedite me not having these problems, invest in the cows button should be right on the front page, updated and everything, so I can get that MacBook Pro with the carrying case, and we should have a lot fewer technical difficulties. Right to the program. Our guest for today's broadcast, he is the Prime Minister of Positive Kemetic Visions. Let me say that one more time. Prime Minister of Positive Kemetic Visions. They do outstanding work. I think you have heard Irritated Genie mention Positive Kemetic Visions, as well as Sister Nefertari with Southampton. They are in Washington, D.C. They have videos. They have books, outstanding lectures to combat the system of white supremacy, and it is a real privilege to have him on the broadcast with us. Our guest for the evening, Kush, the Black Unifier. Kush, the Black Unifier, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Hotep to you and to the to your radio family. Now, what's the problem? What's the technical? You don't have a computer? Is that what it is?
I don't have my own computer,
okay.
And so I'm forced to kind of move from computer to computer. Sometimes the machine gives me a little some difficulties, and that was the case today. Machine.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to do that, brother. You're looking for a laptop, huh?
Yes, sir. I'm hoping to get funds necessary to have my own laptop. That way I can be a little more consistent with the program and don't have these difficulties. But
all right.
Yeah, thank you so much for your patience and hanging in there with us. I appreciate it. I try to be very respectful of my guest's time coming to share helpful information. And I'm just, like I said, I'm super grateful to have you on the program to speak with our listeners.
And I thank you for having me on your show, brother. Really do. Really super appreciate it.
No problem. Before we hop in, because I want you to be able to share as much as possible, could you give some background information to what Positive Kemetic Visions is all about and your role as Prime Minister?
Well, Positive Kemetic Visions is a proactive, community-based, African-centered movement committed to the absolute self-determination and empowerment of black people throughout the world. Now, we call ourselves a movement because we're not a group. We're about progressive movement for our people. And again, our agenda is about absolute self-determination and empowerment of black people. And basically what we're talking about is fighting the system of racism, white supremacy with all the tools that we have by any means necessary. We started in Washington, D.C. in 1992, so this is our 18th year of existence. And we're not one of the mainstream media organizations or movements that you hear about in mainstream media, and that's by choice. Our work is serious. Most of the time it's underground, but a lot of times we do above ground things, like, for instance, every month we have a communiversity, a term that was coined by Dr. Bobby Wright, where we bring the community out for a forum, a lecture discussion each month. There's a schedule that people can obtain on our website, and basically, we let the people know that we need to get together to have a plan of action to fight the system in all areas of people activity, according to Brother Neely Fuller in economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So we are attacking the issue of racism, white supremacy. And we say racism, white supremacy, being the students of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, because racism, white supremacy is the only functional form of racism. So in a nutshell, that's what we do, brother. We're an organization of young and old brothers and sisters who are committed, completely committed to doing something about our condition. We're not sitting on our hands, and we do that through various forms, like the things. We're a quasi-secretive organization, so the things that I can talk about the fact that we have produced a lot of materials, mostly video. We know our people in particular are very visual people. And what we're doing, we're trying to counteract that white racist media So when you're sitting at home, when you're in your vehicle, or when you have free time during the day, you can pop in a CD or DVD from Positive Kinetic Visions, much like you can from other organizations or movements or individuals who are working to combat the system of racism and white supremacy. And we provide a whole litany, a library on different subjects as it relates to racism and white supremacy. And I just want to give that address. It's www.pkvstore.com. You can look at all of our video products, T-shirts, things of that nature. We also have a Black Decency campaign and an anti-N-word campaign that we've been running for the last 3 years. Now, one of the major problems that we have determined is a problem of self-hatred, as many of our predecessors have, and even people out here that are doing this work now have determined that we've determined that self-hatred manifests itself in really now it's quite visual in terms of the way that when you look at the community, the black community, you see brothers and sisters that don't know how to conduct themselves and dress and proper speech. And when I talk about proper speech, I'm not talking about speaking the King's English to the Queen's States. I'm talking about in terms of the way they've allowed the vulgarity and basically not knowing how to conduct themselves in public in a self-respecting manner. So we have a Black Decency campaign that we have been running for the last few years, along with a calendar that pretty much dictates what we should be doing on a monthly basis, gives us some things to focus on. So that's it in a nutshell of what we do.
Wow. Well, I want to give yes, sir. I want to give the website one more time. pkvstore.com.
Right.
pkvstore.com. If you are listening at Blog Talk Radio, you can click Positive Kemetic Visions, and that link will take you right to their page, and you can check out some of the DVDs and titles that they have. And just to kind of whet your appetite, I want to share some of the titles of the DVDs that you can pick up at their website. ABCs of Armed Self-Defense, Black Nationalism and Homosexuality, The Impossible Alliance, Be a Man, Black Male, just to whet your appetite for some of the offerings that you can pick up at pkvstore.com, support Positive Kemetic Vision. I got a list of titles, things you would like to address with us, and I just want to shoot right down the line of the list because I was just excited with everything that I got that was included. The first thing that was on the list was Black Athletes. What is your view on Black athletes? Oh, wait a minute. Before I get to that, I got every program. This is the C.O.W.S, Context of White Supremacy. I have concluded, unfortunately, that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy, and the definition that I use for both terms is as follows. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that is an accurate definition?
That is certainly an accurate definition. There are many definitions that are relevant, and I like the definition that we use also, where racism and white supremacy is a system or institution developed by whites, basically to annihilate all the black people from the face of use, abuse, or annihilate black people from the face of planet Earth. Or like Dr. Collins used to say, the late Dr. Collins used to say, it's prejudice plus power. Because a lot of time, our people and, whites will use the argument that blacks can be racist as well. Well, first of all, we're reacting to something that is happening, that has happened, and is continuing to happen to us. And that is an extreme form of hatred, like you're saying. And also, the other part is we don't have power to oppress them. We can't change the educational system so they can make their children hate themselves, or the media industry so that they can annihilate their minds through the television or through the radio or through an iPod or iPhone or whatever. So that's an excellent definition that you just gave, though. I concur completely with that definition.
Okay. And I would think, Kush the Black Unifier, you are a black male. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because if I can just jump in real quick, the problem with one of the problems is this, brother, we're afraid of that term black. Now, there's nothing wrong with the term African American to describe ourselves, but we do it because the term black has been used as a negative connotation in so many forms that we're running away from the term now. Like when you listen to these various conferences and these forums where black people meet, that you rarely hear the term black anymore. It seems that we've run away from it. So I'm glad you asked me if I'm a black man, because that's exactly who I am. I'm a black man. So thank you for that.
Right on. Oh, no problem, sir. No problem. Okay, now I can table is set. Now, the list of topics that you were going to cover with us today, number one was black athletes. Surely black athletes, this is of the success of at least some black people in the system of white supremacy. They're out doing great things, working against racism, white supremacy. What is your view on black athletes?
Well, some black athletes are working in the interest of defeating or helping to subjugate the system of racism, white supremacy. But by and large, it's a system. It's a entertainment sub-slavery system that's really another avenue designed to, like for instance, to trick us. In other words, most of our young brothers, if you come into the community, want to play basketball, mostly basketball, or football, or some kind of professional sport. And as we know, very few will actually attain a level of skills that will allow them to be able to take part in professional sports and those big paychecks. We just did a lecture on black athletes. And the basic thing that we wanted to communicate to people is that when you look at sports, period, it's one of the, it used to be a way that we could channel our energy, like for instance, boxing, when you look at Muhammad Ali, when you look at the legacy of Muhammad Ali, it was very, very, it was a very supreme time period during the time he reigned as champion, or during the time that he boxed, because he was representing the Nation of Islam, for the most part. And it was the first time the black world had seen a brother whoop up on white boys with a conscience. Very few athletes have followed in succession. Now, prior to that, when we started talking about sports, I think the most prominent sport to look at it would really be baseball, because if you look at you've heard of the Negro League, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jackie Robinson came out of the. Well, the interesting part about the Negro League is that it was a league that was actually organized by a brother by the name of Rube Foster in 1879. Now that's very shortly after the period of legal slavery, let's say it like that. Although we know technically slavery didn't end until much longer. But Rube Foster organized the teams, very, very, very powerful businessman. Because there were a lot of teams out there, black teams, which, Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson and people like that, played in this Negro League, and they were very talented players, actually much better than the American National Baseball League, much more talented. Black people had it going on, brother. We would fill up stadiums with tens of thousands of people, and the money would change hands mostly between blacks. Of course, you had your small hats, so whites who consider themselves to be Jews, we describe them as small hats. You had your small hat element in there, but for the main part, we were making money. We had our own stadiums, and in fact, the Negro League was so influential that during the time period when it existed, we were the first to have night games. So the whole idea of putting lights in the stadium came from the Negro League. The whites borrowed that, and they also borrowed the idea of wearing helmets from the Negro League. So basically, I shouldn't say borrowed, they stole it. They stole those ideas. But it was very interesting what happened. These leagues were in all the major cities, and especially in the South, and brothers traveled around making a lot of money. For that time period, they were very successful. They were able to feed their families, and people had opportunity to be coaches. You not only can be an athlete, but you can be a coach, a manager, or you can be on the business, other parts of the business end of the deal. Once the whites looked at it and they examined the Negro League, when they brought in Jackie Robinson, when they introduced him to the American, the white league of baseball, it destroyed the Negro League. So we had it going on. We were eating. We had homes, we had a means of income, and just the act of a white deciding that they should allow us to be able to play in their game, which they needed us to be able to fill their stands up. All of a sudden, the first game that Jackie Robinson played, I believe 16,000 black people showed up for the game, and brother, it was the beginning of the end for us as in terms of the the Negro League. So basically, he played for a group, a team called the Kansas City Monarchs. Well, when did he join the National League? I believe in 1947. Well, that was the end of the Monarchs and also the other teams that were playing in the Negro League. So we have this problem, this mental problem where, you know, it's that mentality where we believe that the white ice is colder than ours. We have to be a part of their. We have to sit at the table with them. They have to be a part of us. You know, the integrationist mentality. You know, they have to be a part of our efforts to liberate ourselves. They have to be the ones feeding us. You know, it's that "what's the matter, boss? We sick" kind of mentality. And on the surface, it looks good, but in the interim, it absolutely kills us from making a commitment to ourselves. Because again, we had it going on. It's one of the best examples of how we allowed ourselves to be destroyed seeking integration. So today's athlete, moving forward with today's athlete, it sort of started a trend. So now instead of doing our own thing, and certainly we have enough talented players, especially in basketball at this point in time, that we can start our own leagues. And in a lot of cases, you'll notice, like in places like New York City and the major urban cities around the country, they have their own mostly black leagues. But the goal is to get to the white league, when in fact the talent is much more advanced in the black leagues, if I should say so, to you be able to use that term. So we have this mentality right now, as I said before, that really is self-defeating. So today's current athlete, he's in a real controlled environment. For instance, when these athletes go through, I guess, elementary school, and they show some promise, immediately they start to gain some kind of attention, whether in the major three sports for blacks: baseball, basketball, and football. Once they show promise, they're pretty much watched and groomed towards the white structure. How is it that we have a black college system, but most of those does any of the schools play in the top level of college basketball or football? No. And it's because the whites are extracting the talent out of our community, extracting these personalities, so we can never have another Muhammad Ali who would affect change, or at least have us believe that we can do something about our condition. So it's a very controlled environment, it's a very racist environment, and most people dance to the beat. Now, if you look at recently, like Serena Williams and Venus Williams, they did very well at, I believe, Wimbledon recently. In fact, Serena went on to win Wimbledon. Now, Serena goes to Africa, and she recently opened her second school in Kenya. Now, we're talking about black athletes. Now, on the surface, we applaud that. We say, hey, that's great. You know, Serena Williams is concerned about African people. She's gone back to Kenya, and she's going to lend her name and her economic resources to the people in Kenya. But if you dig deeper, you really find out that she's really propped up by a white institution, Hewlett-Packard, and basically they're ensuring that people in Africa don't break out and become one of the kind of liberation or freedom for themselves. Are you still with me, bro?
Yes, sir. Listening.
Okay, because I heard I like a little drum sound just now. But anyway, so it's kind of a catch-22 situation that we're in. Yeah, we want to make a lot of money. We want to be able to parlay that wealth into liberation, but that's not going to happen if we continue in the current system that we operate in. Like, again, you look at Serena Williams, I think it's the best example. Also, a sister that's non-self-respecting who recently posed on the front. I know they're saying she has an image change and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe it one bit. She's controlled by the same white supremacists that really control all of us. She's basically being placed before the black community as a sexual toilet, and she posed nude for I forget which magazine, but one of these ESPN magazine just recently last year. Now she's opened up a school. She's in Africa with blonde hair. I believe that's the last thing the black women in Africa need is blonde hair, or to be looking at some Negro from America sporting blonde hair telling them that she's going to help them out. Same, you know. So it's a situation with black athletes and their commitment to the black community. A lot of times their commitment comes through the permission of white so-called Jews, again, who we call small hats. In other words, they on the surface seem to be doing good things in our community. They seem to want to help out, but they don't know how, because they're playing to the tune of the Zionists. They're only giving help and assistance in areas where, again, it can look like they're giving help, but at the same time they're doing more harm than good. Black athletes are some of the worst Negroes, and let's not forget that they're entertainers. they're some of the worst hit Negroes in history of the modern day black athletes. Worse because the worst Negroes, and I say that because, like, when you take the brothers, for instance, when you look at the particularly NBA, we look at the numbers of brothers who are involved in interracial relationship with these white dog females. Is mind-boggling. Like, you look at let's look at Michael Jordan, who married his wife shortly after joining the league, but in reality he wanted to marry a white female because he didn't want to, but because of his reputation, the fact that it might have hurt his reputation, he decided not to do that and marry this sister, Juanita. But in actuality, he wanted to marry a white female. And most of these brothers sleep with white females. In fact, that's their introduction to pro sports, or college sports, I should say. And really, it's almost like a slave system when you look at the fact that a lot of our brothers go to these schools, play football, basketball, in some cases baseball, although we've been pretty much blocked out of baseball at this point in time. Brothers that are here in the States, when you look at them, they pretty much introduced to, the standard is for them to be introduced to white females, and so they give them wealth, and that wealth goes right back to the white community, pretty much guaranteed.
Wow. Again, Kush, the Black Unifier, sorry, I'm going to say that one more time. Kush, the Black Unifier, Prime Minister of Positive Kemetic Visions, magnificent information. I guess while we're on the subject, I'm curious because this is where the last broadcast that we had here at the C.O.W.S ended. Have you been seeing any of the white people's responses to the relocation of LeBron James? It seems like suspected racists are furious that he decided to switch plantations. Could you share your thoughts on that?
Yes, sir. You know, and I'll use the Tea Party as a backdrop. Now that Obama's president, you know, whites are livid, and that racism is no longer under the cover. It's all out and open now. The new form of Klan that calls themselves the Tea Party is out and open, and everybody's joining up. All whites are joining up. And so what you're seeing now is this more visible form of racism, like we saw yesterday. You know how they say, you know, history repeats itself to those who refuse to learn the lessons from the past, and that's exactly what we're experiencing right now. If we take a quick look at sports and the history of sports as far as black people are concerned, and look at the number of times that we've seen our favorite black player traded overnight. A lot of times these players will tell you themselves that they have they will be playing in the city that they enjoy, and overnight they be traded. They find out the next morning through the news that they're traded. It wouldn't even be told by the mostly Jewish Zionist ownership and management of the particular teams they play for, and they would just have to take their children and take their families and just in the middle of the night pack up and go to a new city so this slave, this high-priced slave can play for a new team. So that's been a tradition that's been pretty standard in the past. We all know about situations where persons have been traded that did not want to be traded. So now all of a sudden, this brother LeBron James, this immensely talented basketball player, decides that he wants to get with his brothers. Now that's what it's really all about. You know, him and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade formulating their own team. It's probably the first time it's been done in open where brothers have decided they want to play with each other. So that's a significant point that shouldn't be lost. So in response, the owner of the Miami Heat, the Zionist owner of the Miami Heat, decides to blast off with an open letter, basically call him a traitor and basically call his brother all types of names and things. But we know it's just about race. It's about the fact that they don't want to see brothers make decisions for themselves, especially when they've been making decisions for brothers. And so that pissed them off. They're really, really hot about that situation. But it's really interesting when you watch the fact that LeBron James, we look at the basketball players and look at the fact that the owners are in control of these basketball players. And this is the one situation where it seems as though they lost control of these particular players. Now, everybody knows that basketball players, once their contracts, once they're out of the main part of their contract, once they become free agents, they can play for any team they want. And that has been expressed throughout the league, all throughout sports. But now all of a sudden, they're burning his jersey, which is very reminiscent of lynchings. If you look at the city of Cleveland, they're actually taking his jersey out and burning it on the street. And I think all this got started with Dan Gilbert, who is the Cleveland Cavaliers owner. And the bottom line is that it's very it's almost like a pseudo lynching in a sense, because in spirit they're lynching them, and they're lynching black men for making their own decisions. So it's a real deep situation, and it really saddens me when I see black people comment when they talk about, well, you know, one of the reasons they say is that James should not have called a press conference and held everybody at bay for as long as he did, and held this, I believe, an hour-long. I didn't watch it on television because, of course, it's all just a bunch of subterfuges designed to keep us from the real issues that are going on in this country, like the two recent lynchings, pickup lynchings that occurred in South Carolina and in Texas. But just when Dan Gable put out the open letter and they started burning his jersey, I sat there and I watched the news and I was like, wow, they're doing this in the open. They're letting black people know in sports, through sports, that they hate us and that they're willing to kill us. But if you look at LeBron James and what he did in terms of having an hour-long, I guess you call it press conference or whatever. I didn't see an interview when he announced that he was going to the Miami Heat. It was a brilliant marketing move. They're allowed to market. They're allowed to maximize their economic potential. But again, when we do it, it's a problem. It's my hope that James would read a book or come to a PKV lecture or go to some kind of lecture that will wake him up, so he can parlay that wealth into some real freedom-fighting efforts, because it was actually a brilliant business move on his part to do it that way. But I hope it's just not, typically for black athletes, it's just about the game, but for whites it's about business. And the city of Cleveland also, in the backhand, knew that they're going to lose a lot of money with him gone. And the city of Miami is going to gain money, again, high-priced slaves. And I hope that brothers would really, particularly LeBron James at this point, would take that brilliant marketing skills and study on racist white supremacy, understand what it is, and help us do something about it with this wealth. I know he's offered more money in other places, but the idea of him to decide where he wanted to play with other brothers that they got together and made a decision to do that was a brilliant move. But again, I hope that it parlays into some kind of sustainable solutions for us as people that are under the system of being tortured under the system of racism and white supremacy. Did I touch on most of what you wanted to know about that?
Phenomenal, sir. Yeah, I wanted to throw in for people who are listening in, at least the reports that I have read, they have threatened LeBron James and his family with violence. They have threatened to burn down his homes in Cleveland. The owner, suspected white supremacist owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Dan Gilbert,
Zionist.
He changed. Thank you. He changed the price of LeBron James bobblehead from $99.99 to $17.41, and this is how detailed white people are. $17.41 is symbolic because that is the year Benedict Arnold was born.
Is that right?
Raw. Yes.
I heard that part, but I didn't understand the significance of it. Okay, now I understand.
Oh yeah. Everything is relative with suspected racist white supremacists. Wow. Okay. And again, I want to give out the website, pkvstore.com. You can pick up DVDs. They have clothing, everything. Outstanding. Another DVD title, Understanding and Identifying Racism, White Supremacy. All of this available at pkvstore.com.
And they can also call us on the telephone also. 202-207-7886 is our telephone number. Or 7892, I believe. Yeah, 7886 or 7892. 202-207, 7886 or 7892.
Okay. You've already brought it up a couple times. White sex. Can you explain what that is and why that is relevant to any discussion of racism, white supremacy?
The idea of white sex is extremely important when we look at the history of what we call white sex offenders. But let me just give a definition of white sex. White sex is, mainly when we talk about white sex, we're talking about homosexuality. That's a term that the Irritated Genius of Southeast actually coined, and it's a brilliant term because it puts the idea of sexuality, European sexuality, as a beastly form of a beastly act. Basically, we're mostly talking about homosexuality, but when we say white sex, we're talking about any sexual perversions. We're talking about of course, child molestation, which we believe is really the crux of homosexuality. It's the gateway to homosexuality. If we were to rid our community of, I know a lot of people think this is a radical statement, but it's not. If we would be able to rid our community of child molestation, we would end the problem of black homosexuality. We would end the problem of homosexuality in our community. Homosexuality is germane to the European community. It is something that was taught to us on those slave ships. It was something that was forced on us on those plantations. But white sex is any form of sexual perversion. Now, so as it relates to the black community or the black power struggle or black nationalism, we have to look at the major white sex offenders, people like Bayard Rustin, or people like James Baldwin. You know, they were literally traitors. In fact, you know, if you look at James Baldwin, he basically said that he would die with whites if it came down to protecting their lives against the black nationalists. And
wait a minute now. Can I just want to push back a little bit. So
yeah,
just, you know, allowing anything. Bayard Rustin, for people who don't know, he was an integral designer of the so-called March on Washington in 1963. He was a close aide of Martin Luther King Jr. How can you say Bayard Rustin is a race traitor?
Well, but it starts with the fact that, first of all, Bayard Rustin was an avowed open homosexual. He was very interesting in the fact that he learned the techniques of nonviolence from Gandhi, who was a big-time racist. He was actually an official in the South African Army. And I just want to tell you real quickly, the phone line's cut off is because we're having a horrible thunderstorm right now, so I don't know what's going to happen. The light just blinked a little bit, so I'm just warning you. Can you hear me?
I can hear the thunder. I can hear you and the thunder.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. So when that happens, generally the phone line may go dead. But Bayard Rustin learned the techniques of nonviolence from a racist. He got a problem with that already. Bayard Rustin was not only he was Martin Luther King's mentor. In fact, he would have been the person that Martin Luther King is, except that at that point in time, black people weren't really receptive to a black man that didn't know he was a man. Bayard Rustin was a very corrupt and egregious homosexual in the sense that he was at one point arrested for being caught in a car with two white boys. And I don't know if you can call it sex, but he was doing something in there. But this person worked against our brothers and sisters. He worked against the Nation of Islam. He worked against all the strong black people in the community. And he was actually given advice to Martin Luther King and making him understand that, you know, violence wasn't the way, that, you know, the black radicals were in essence misinformed at the least, and at the most they were the enemy of black people. So Bayard Rustin was a key pivotal figure in the development of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King had the right idea initially in the beginning to a certain degree, I guess as much as a Christian could have the right idea, but Bayard Rustin poisoned his mind with his homosexual nature. And homosexuals, and I talk about this in lecture, if you look at them historically, they have a tendency to be traitors. How could a man who in fact, you know, there was no legal way to marry whites at that point in time, but Bayard Rustin, his whole thing, he loved white males sexually. How could a perverse, corrupted individual like that have any love for Martin Luther King or for black people's liberation movement? No, he liked the way that we were living because, in a sense, and this goes for all white homosexuals, you have to understand that they have to, everything operates by law. And when you look at an African communal system, when you look at African people, historically, law is about rules. It's about governing principles that guide you on a day-to-day basis. One thing that we know is that the black man is for the black woman and the black woman is for the black man. And we know that's law. So they couldn't operate in a system like that. They couldn't work in a system. That's why you see so much pressure being placed on these countries in Africa where they actually homosexuality or white sex is illegal, because they understand that they have to let me use the word faggotize us, because if once they faggotize us, we will not be able to produce law, we will not be able to enforce law. And that's why it's important to faggotize the race. There was an article that came out a few years ago about how the U.S. Army one of the goals when they went to Iraq, I know I'm all over the place with this, I'm going someplace with this. One of the goals for Iraq was to homosexualize the men. Who wouldn't want to fight a homosexual army? Undisciplined, sick homosexual army. And that's why you saw the situation with Abu Ghraib come up, where all the prisoners, they talk about torture, but when you look at the torture that the United States military was putting on these Iraqi men, it was all homosexual in nature. In other words, you had men being put in female garments, men being actually raped in those prisons. So it was very important for them to send operatives into the black community, particularly during the early period, even prior to the Civil Rights era, which Bear Russell came into play. It was important for them to place those individuals in front of us so they could weaken our struggle. Because and now they won. If you look at it, we're more interested in talking about same-sex rights in the black community, and it's one of the biggest arguments against this backdrop of them burning an effigy of LeBron James and rich white men white males who really won't have. I mean, let's look at it. Dan Gilbert, the small hat, the Zionist, he's not going to be affected by LeBron James' decision. The bottom line, he's going to be rich today. He was rich yesterday. He'll be rich tomorrow. The bottom line is it's about black manhood, and he wants to destroy black manhood. And James gave him a glimpse of what a strong black man could be. And so the bottom line is they have to effeminize us. So black homosexuals are sabotaging our attempt to become a strong, righteous race. And I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but I don't really care about that. I never really did, because it's the absolute truth. We've never gotten anywhere with now people will say, well, you don't know who's gay. Well, I'm talking about the persons who are avowed homosexuals that we can prove that they're white sex offenders. Those individuals have betrayed us, and they betrayed us in a mighty, mighty way. Bear Rustin is at the top of that list. And also Asa Phillips Randolph, another white sex offender, who these individuals, James Baldwin, and a whole list of others, they were out in the front. I mean, the whites had them out there fighting against the nationalists, who we really wanted freedom, brothers and sisters that are listening. And the homosexuals softened our message. They corrupted our message. I hope that I know it was all over the place. I hope that kind of answered the question, or that answered the question with regards to Bear Rustin.
You said that so-called homosexuals soften our message. I just like to give clarity, because I know this can ruffle some feathers, so I just want as much clarity as possible. What do you mean when you say homosexuals soften our message? Because
everything is about law, brother. And there are universal laws and principles that guided us ever since we set foot on this planet. We know that you can only reproduce through a man and a woman. I know white researchers and scientists are working on that right now. Well, it's not a human being's place to decide different. That's something that animals even understand. Dogs, animals understand that they must find a female counterpart, and it's usually within the same species. Well, they have to pretty much be in the same species until, again, we start meddling. And then they understand they can reproduce. Well, black homosexuals, black so-called white sex offenders, again, their issue is not just about homosexuality. It's about being in a lawless situation, living in a situation without rules. Nothing in this world that is supposed to be organized, nothing that is rational and is intelligent, can be rational and intelligent and be progressive when they're out of balance with law, when they're out of balance with rules. And again, the Creator produced us. The male has a penis and the female has a vagina. The primary function of the penis and the vagina is to reproduce. And the black gays, we're talking about black gays, have decided that they're going to bypass that system and create a corrupt system for themselves. Now, I got to go back a little bit because, I did a radio show, about 15 years ago. I was on a radio show, and I'd asked all the homosexuals to call in because, I was making similar statements that I'm making right now. And be honest, were they sexually abused? And 99% of them said they were sexually abused. Again, when you look at cultures around the world, I'm talking about cultures of people of color, not white culture. but people of color, homosexuality is not, for the most part, most of these cultures do not operate with a white sex viewpoint. It is unnatural. It's ungodly. And again, you cannot reproduce. It's unbalanced. Most of those calls were called in, they said they had been sexually abused. And we got to understand that when that happens to a child, when a child is raped that way, it definitely causes mental instability. And we have to be honest about that. Let's look at, like, for instance, two women, whereas one woman, now they, for the most part, don't like men. But one woman acts like a man. She dresses like a man, and she does things sexually like a man. If that isn't the complete complete sexual backwardsness, then I don't know what is. And we have to look at men. A man that acts like a woman. Well, you don't have to act like a man. You can have a man. You don't have to act like a woman. You can have a woman. You know, the truth is the fact that we're supposed to, by the law of the Creator, connect with one another. The opposite, male, female, female, male. Not female, female. It doesn't produce anything but confusion and wickedness across the land. Did I answer the question?
For me, very clearly. I totally understand what was said. I really like getting as much detail as possible around this subject matter because I feel that the white sex assault is in high gear. Racist white supremacists are really pushing this hard on black people. Can you break down the relationship between child molestation and so-called homosexual activity?
Well, we have to go back into the period of Greece, and we have to look at the things that their leaders have said, like they're great thinkers. You know, when they talked about sex between a man and a man was higher and more pleasurable than sex with a woman. That's the way their society functioned. And if you look at right now, America and Europeans are headed directly in that direction. They want to take everybody with them. Look at the breakdown of law and order in this country. Most of it resulting from, particularly for our community, and even for the white community also, not having a strong male and a strong female at the helm of a family. Now you have situations where you have families being put together by two women. Well, two women can't produce a child. Two men can't produce a child. That is unnatural. So I know that people are going to disagree, but, you know, I don't know that my first goal is to try to convince us to do the right thing. But, again, I don't really care because we have this battle to fight. If you look at the argument now in the current news, the argument is all about whether they have right to marry, whether they have right to get health insurance. And so it really has disrupted our movement. It has disrupted our fight for race respect. It has disrupted our fight from our standpoint for black manhood. So we have to look at the fact that homosexuals have defied us, and they have poisoned our issue. Because now when we get together, we have to understand that when black people start talking about rights and things, if say for instance you have a group of nationalists with a group of so-called homosexuals, these white sex offenders, when we're in the same room, we're not going to have our ideas to be self-determining. Our ideas to be a people who are able to go for self, do for self, and not have to be asking other people to do things for us that we should be doing for ourselves. Well, we can say for instance, if we can have an agreement on that, the gays are going to want something else. They're going to want the right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
hello?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, because I heard the phone snap. Okay, this thunder is really crashing now. But they're going to want rights beyond the rights of men and women who are in normal heterosexual relationships. And so that clouds the issue automatically. Let's look at the fact that you know something is damaging to us when it's put on us with the kind of freedom that it's being placed on us in mass media. And I'll tell you, like, let's look at Tyler Perry, for instance, where all of his films have this man who dresses like a woman. Now, couldn't a woman be funny by herself? Why does a man have to dress like a woman to be funny? Well, there's an agenda there. And America always has had an agenda and continues to have an agenda. And that agenda was set long before Obama got in office, long before many of these black politicians got in office. They have decided that the best way to annihilate us is, again, to destroy our family, and they've been very successful at that. When you look at we had an incident some years ago where in this church in Washington, D.C., they had basically a coming out night at this church that we respected with Union Temple Baptist Church with a reverend who's supposedly a black nationalist, Reverend Willie Wilson. And he had a coming out party at his church, and we were shocked and appalled that they would be pushing this agenda when our black community has so many other issues going on. But now we're understanding why that occurred, because we've been given full permission to become freaks. We've been given full permission to dissolve or destroy the idea of having a strong black family unit, which is a cornerstone of any kind of civilization that's going to be progressive. And again, if we look at history as a backdrop, if we look at all the nations in Africa, strong men, strong women produce strong children in a family unit. And when you combine that, that's how you get something called civilization. And so we have to reject homosexuality. We have to reject freakishness, because, again, it produces nothing but confusion and death.
Again, our guest, Kush, the Black Unifier, Prime Minister of Positive Kemetic Visions. Please support the website pkvstore.com. Again, pkvstore.com. I feel this is very much related, what you've been sharing, to what you have termed the Black Decency Movement. Mm-hmm. Can you explain more about what that is, the Black Decency Movement?
The Black Decency Movement, the way it started was we still exist. We still live in a black community. And I guess around 10 years ago, we started seeing like acute mental illness with regards to our youth. Again, the way that they express themselves through dress and through their public mannerisms and the music that they listen to. And we determined in Positive Kinetic Visions that we have to do something about it. We have to do something about young brothers walking around with their pants hanging down. People are getting tattooed, writing on their bodies when we invented paper to write on. And again, not for any kind of African-centered ceremonial purposes, just writing on the body. Most of the things that were, again, here we go again, that were germane to the homosexual white sex community, now so-called heterosexual black people are doing, like, you know, brothers are walking around with scarves hanging out of their pockets, whether they're in gangs or not, you know, scarves, you know, signifying, you know, what gang that they're affiliated with, their gang affiliation. Brothers are carrying around man bags. I don't know if you've seen those, the designer bags. Again, they're walking around with their undergarments showing definitely a direct result of a lack of black manhood. And so we decided that we have to do something about that. Again, looking at this music that is really psychopathic, the music that we call slave hip-hop. Well, basically, our children are being told to destroy themselves. They already hate themselves because we haven't taught them better. But they're being destroyed through this music form called hip-hop that we call slave hip-hop. So all the lyrics and all the hatred in those lyrics, all the black-on-black violence is being manifested through their behavior. And we can clearly see the correlation between what they're listening to, and the black church has not been an answer. And, of course, the black nationalist movement is so small now and almost impotent, again, by some of the forces that we're talking about, like this homosexuality, you know, which has basically become a bigger issue, even amongst ourselves, you know. But we decided to do something about it, so we decided to come up with a DVD. It's called The Black Decency Movement, and it really gives instructions, just basic day-to-day instructions, things that we need to focus on to get back in line with the progressive people. And I keep talking about progressive because we have to be progressive. We have to get back to where we used to be at one point. You know, we were at the helm of planet Earth at one point, the first people on the planet. And now we're acting as if we're on our way out. And if we don't do something about our condition, we will be taken out. I look at the level of violence in our community. You know, there was this recent, you know, the cop in Seattle was given a life sentence for executing a brother, and it was filmed. It was caught on camera. And we know this kind of thing happens all the time. So, I'm sorry, Oakland, California. And but the interesting part about it is that when we kill each other, we don't protest. You know, we don't take to the streets. And I wish we would start getting. And again, they should get excited. They should want to hurt somebody white. They should want to take a stab at the system when white crooked cops do these kinds of things to us, this racist police system. But we should also get that excited when black men take out each other, when black men rape black women, when black men rape children, or vice versa, when black women do things that are not honorable in our community, that's criminal. So the Black Decency movement is about righting the wrong. It's really about correcting the perverse path that we're on, the path to destruction. And so some examples of some of the things we're talking about is that first on the list is the N-word. You know, we're not that. We've got to stop calling ourselves the N-word. Like Dr. Wilson said, when a word is used with frequency, we need to examine that word. Well, when we examine the word, we'll find out that that word was invented as a put down. You know, it was meant to put us in a negative light, and it was first used by whites, I believe, in the 16th century. Absolutely, and that word was used to describe a people as less than human. And now, through slavery, through their system of racism, white supremacy, they have given us that word to use when addressing each other, and we think it's harmless. But of course, if you look at the fact that we don't own anything, if you look at the fact that we're rock bottom or dead last in every relevant statistical category, then you know that something's having an impact on us. So the first thing we're asking is that our people stop using the N-word. It's not appropriate. Nor the people that are progressive or that want progress use a term that represents hate, that represents bloodshed, that represents evil and negativity. The other thing we're talking about is that we got to stop practicing this thing called white sex, because no one is truly born that way. You know, I've never seen a gay child before. So human beings put that on other humans, you know. In a community where when we see that kind of behavior, we got to understand that it's not natural. Again, it's not natural. The bottom line is that we've got to stop practicing white sex behavior. Again, that includes so-called homosexuality and also child molestation, and also all this bisexuality, down low, all this type of evil, sexual evil. One of the other things that we talk about is that, and in the Black Decency movement, is that we've got to get back to reading. When we look at the failure rate of blacks in the United States, it's about 50% the number of black students that are dropping out of school between junior high school and high school. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it's appalling. It's a crisis situation that we're in. And we know that very simply we could read to get our way out of it. We can read our way out of this situation. Or at least we can read
wait a minute. Wait a minute now. I have had black people come on this program and make comments related to things that other black people have said that would suggest reading is just parroting information and you don't need to read a book. Reading is just not teaching you how to think. It's just teaching you to regurgitate what someone else has said. Are you saying you said we could read our way out of the problem? We can read our way out of the problem of racism, white supremacy. Now, again, that's going to take action. Now, I'm not just saying you're going to pick up a book, but that book is going to compel you. That relevant book is going to compel you to action. So I've never heard that kind of argument made, but I would literally rip into a person that says something crazy like that, because when you think about it, what's the alternative? Watching television? But the thing of it is that I used to be in the streets, brother. I had, when I was in high school, I thought I was a bad guy. I wanted to be, although I had good grades because my parents wouldn't allow me to get anything other than good grades. I like the thug life. I like the idea of, being a tough guy. I like the idea of pretending that I wasn't a learned person. Basically, I would sneak in, I would hide the good grades that I got, and keep that from the guys. But I like to hang out with the rough crowd. Well, somebody put one of my teachers when I was in the 11th grade in high school put a book in. Actually told the whole class that we had to read a book. And I had no idea about who we were as a people. My parents didn't teach me lessons of slavery. They didn't teach me lessons of racism, white supremacy. They didn't have access to information. They didn't have computers or PDA devices, and they couldn't go to any library when they were coming up. In fact, most of them in the South had to drop out of school just to get a bite to eat, so they can, work and feed their family, just to get a bite, So my whole thing was, when this book, the teacher gave us this book to read, and this book literally changed my life. The book was called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by D. Brown. Now, it was very interesting because I thought that the Indians were bad people, or Native Americans.
You know, whenever John Wayne came on television, I always rooted for the white boys because the Indians were savages. You know, they were primitive, and they need to be put out of their misery. You know, I didn't understand that they were a rich culture, that their culture was older than the white culture. I didn't understand that they were a just and moral people. But I read that book and I was blown away. And I got an A on the assignment when we had to do a report on the book. And believe it or not, a lot of people in the class didn't take the book very seriously. But one thing about it, and here we go back to the black father. My father didn't talk to his children much, you know, but he definitely read a lot. I always saw him read the newspaper, and that's where I got the idea that I should read. So I read the book, and I read it. We didn't have to read the entire book, but I ended up reading the entire book, and it made me thirsty for other information. So then someone put in another book in my hand. It was by Sheikh Anta Diop, and you know it was on after that, brother, because I started searching for the truth. And when I found the truth, brother, it made me move forward. It made me progress. It made me want to fight. It made me want to do something about our condition. It made me want to return to glory. It made me want to be self-respecting and self-loving. You know, it made me want to be self-determining, and it made me want to talk to my people because the books are a measuring stick. Relevant books by black authors are measuring sticks, and I'll say some other authors. But reading is so fundamental that it changed my life, and it could change yours too. We all know the story of Malcolm X. Well, how did Malcolm X become Malcolm X? Well, we can't discredit the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but what was Malcolm doing? Malcolm was reading, and it turned him from a criminal into a saint in our community. So many brothers that we know go into that penal institution that when they're made to sit still, when they're forced to sit still, the smart ones pick up books. Books change their lives. Books turn them into honorable people. Books turn them into freedom fighters, into into militants, you know, righteous militants. And so then that's a story just about all of our greats. Not necessarily prison, but the reading part. Because we know the truth is hidden from us. We can't exist in a system of racism, white supremacy. We know they took off the physical shackles, but we know we have mental shackles on us now. That's why they were able to take off the physical shackles. Something that whites in Europe, and also in America were taught to the whites in South Africa recently. You don't have to have a system of apartheid. You know, you can oppress them now mentally and socially, and they will hurt themselves. That's why in South Africa they have one of the highest crime rates in all of Africa. I think the highest crime rate in all of the world. I think, well, according to white supremacists anyway, but we know it's high, and it's because they've taught the people to hate themselves. Now we know that people that are relevant, people that are progressive racially, they read. That's how they get out of the situation. Now you can watch videos, you can watch DVDs, but you have to have some reading under your belt. You have to have a lot of reading under you. You have to go and do research. And interesting thing about that is that now at this point in time in history, we can practically put our hands on any kind of book. I was told by someone a long time ago, if you want to know anything, you can go get a book and it can practically teach you about it. If reading wasn't important, then why is it a requirement throughout school, especially when you're going to try to get a degree? You know, which they require you to have a degree to get many of these jobs. And so if reading wasn't important, so to a person who says that reading is important, it's really not a very deep thinking. It's some surface thinking that really comes out of a mindset that doesn't understand that in ancient Kemet, let's go back to Ethiopia, where we wrote books. We wrote the world's first books. We were the first authors. You know, we have to look at the libraries in Alexandria and Timbuktu. You know, so a person that talks like that doesn't understand our history and understand how we reigned at the helm of the planet so long. It's because we wrote and we read, and now again, not on our bodies. Books.
I just want to throw out for folks who are listening, I could be incorrect, but at least in books that I have read, one of the first things that invading, conquering people do is to destroy libraries. Absolutely. I could be incorrect, but and again, I read that in the book, so it could be wrong. But that's one of the first things they generally do. The library gets torched. I guess I wanted to I wanted to get you to share what you mean when you say manhood, but before I get to that, one of my listeners, Nubian King 2000, he wanted you to explain more about this so-called coming out party with Willie Wilson. You said that was related to the white sex and homosexuality. If you could give a little more detail about that, that would be appreciated.
Okay, now, again, I don't know the actual date, but I'm going to try to find the actual date. It was with Reverend Willie Wilson. He had maybe this person probably knows the church or whatever, but basically he had basically it was a night of forgiveness. He wanted his church to have a night of forgiveness where they would, where the black community would no longer stigmatize them. We would no longer have a problem with their lifestyle or their death style. We would basically embrace them and not judge them. And he had this meeting at his church, and it was I'm trying to find a date. Let me look through my notes real quick because I'm not making this up. I just want people to know that it actually did happen. And I can't remember the title of the program, but if someone out there knows, then they could help me out with this. But I'll get it in a minute. But anyway, what this event was all about? It was about us having black people having a forum where we no longer criticize their behavior. We no longer even intellectualize their behavior. In other words, we no longer do anything. We just embrace them openly. We don't embrace or the idea of educating ourselves about why so-called homosexuality happens. And he had an event, and he had taped speeches from people like Jesse Jackson. It was kind of weird. And Reverend Frontroy, who was like at one point a politician, and they were all in support of this idea of allowing. And of course, George Stallings of the Gay Catholic Church in Washington D.C. was there, and they were all embracing this idea of allowing black people just to decide who they're going to be and just forget about even the rules under Christianity that a man should not be with another man. But they were against any idea of judging or criticizing them, and they had this meeting this evening, and they basically had a rally. It was like a church service, and it was not talking about or speaking to people getting out of the behavior. It was about them, about us supporting their behavior, about us backing them up. And so actually a fight broke out at the church because at one point, people were getting very upset. Again, here's this outsized behavior where people in the church kissing and hugging and holding hands. And I know that a lot of churches have this kind of behavior in them, but it was kind of bizarre. I was there, so I'm not making this up. I was there. I have no reason to make anything up or no reason to lie about anything. They were there. Men were holding hands and women were kissing and holding hands, and it was like a gay freaknik. And it ended with a prayer to basically get black people to accept this misbehavior. I hope that answers this question. I believe it was in 1995, 1996, somewhere around there. And since that time, and I'll be fair, he's flip-flopped on the issue a couple of times because he started talking about in recent years, and shortly after that, he was running for office. So we know how that is with these corrupt politicians. We found out he was running for office, which is why he probably had the event in the first place. But then a few years later, he came out and said that the young girls, and what's happening in these high schools and these junior high schools, where the young girls are jumping each other into homosexuality, where you have these girl gay gangs, which are, and the newspaper has been really remiss, but they reported a little bit of the activity, but it's been pretty horrendous in terms of girls jumping each other into homosexuality, particularly with the girls. And girls were in schools, they couldn't even go to the bathroom without being attacked, they couldn't go to the bathroom by themselves for fear of being attacked by these other confused young ladies who were forcing them into this misbehavior. And so he talked about that was a real big problem, and of course, the city came down on him. It was kind of weird because, again, before that, he was receptive of before he was against the behavior, then he became receptive, then he went against the behavior. So this is a real confused individual, like most preachers.
Wow.
I had to get that in there. I think I have it right here. Oh, yeah, here it is. It was on, I'm sorry, I went back way too far. It says, a family heals. The black family comes together in love and peace to heal the wounds from years of family division based on sexual orientation. A night of love and reconciliation, Union Temple Baptist Church, Washington, D.C., Tuesday, May 30th, 2000, at 7 p.m., Reverend Willie F. Wilson, pastor, Reverend Mary L. Wilson, assistant pastor. It was bizarre because here's this man is married to a woman, encouraging men to be with men. Now, what was really interesting about the whole thing was that this family heals. He didn't talk about crack usage, which is at an all-time high, particularly at that point. He didn't talk about, the drug situation in our community. He didn't talk about the black-on-black violence. They're talking about healing us from to accept homosexuality. That's not healing. That's propagandizing people. That's destruction. So the brother, I hope he's listening. It was kind of weird that he would choose to heal us over the conversation of accepting homosexuality in our community, as opposed to dealing with the rampant alcoholism, which my father passed and many other fathers passed as a result of alcoholism. They can't deal with racism, white supremacy, and he didn't rally behind the issue of brothers and sisters not being able to get along. The divide between the black man and the woman that's right now causing black women to run into the arms of other women and even white boys. So that was real bizarre. All the issues that we could have talked about in our community, the one about healing homosexuality, healing our problem with homosexuality was real bizarre. Of all the issues that are going on in our community, he chose that topic. And again, shortly after, he tried to be a politician. So that was just about 10 years ago. It was on May 30th. Well, actually, it was 10 years ago, May 30th, 2000. And if anyone wants to, for me to send that flyer, all they have to do is call or email us at www.pkvfamily at msn.com. Again, www.pkvfamily@msn.com. You can email, and I will actually email you an actual copy of this flyer if you think that it didn't exist. And actually, there was a newspaper article that followed, so it did happen, and it happened. And that church is very influential in the black nationalist community. Minister Farrakhan, the significance of Union Temple Baptist Church is that that's the first church I believe Minister Farrakhan went to when he put the nation back together, the Nation of Islam, back together in 1978. So that's how powerful and deep they are in the black nationalist community. If you go to that church, it was one church that was really, I'll say, tolerant of people who weren't Christian, people like myself and individuals and organizations and movements like myself that wanted to use their facilities. They actually allowed that. But that has dropped off big time since that period of time. But a lot of people think he's a conscious minister, but we found out that he's just another chicken-eating preacher.
Again, context of white supremacy, our guest, Kush, the Black Unifier, Prime Minister of Positive Kemetic Visions. We have a pretty full switchboard here. Are you acceptable with taking a few calls?
I certainly am.
Okay. Person who called in, last four digits, 7158, 7158. If you have a question, your line is open.
The Kush piece. Brother Gus?
Yes,
thank you.
Oh, yes, sir. This is Brother X. I want to play, I agree with what you said on reading, the importance of it. I want to play God's Advocate real quick, though, because, I've been asked this from the Trap Boys, they don't like, or people from the hood or whatnot. Some people, they will have this question to throw at you, so I just want to throw out with the sentiments they ask me about reading. They say some of the claims are, that, you say reading is important and it has a strong connection to black liberation, but they will point out why are most of the black learned and scholars today so anti-black liberation. Harvard professor Gates, Fayette Rustin, and Barack Obama, I mean, they read many, and many other black intellectuals read a lot of books, but they don't advocate for black liberation. So is reading really the key to liberation?
I can answer that question very easily. It's easy to point out the sellouts in our movement. It's very easy to point out people who are traitors. But again, let's look at some of the people let's look at our best liberation, our best freedom fighters. They were avid readers. You point out Barack Obama and those individuals who are not working in the best interests of our people. You point out politicians and people like that. But let's look at the people who meant something to race. Let's go down the line. Let's start with David Walker, who wrote the book David Walker's Appeal. What was his message to us? Read. You know, what was the message of Marcus Garvey? You know, race first. And there are a number of books by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There are a number of books by people who are interested. But let's just look at this. If you talk about brothers in the hood, I understand that, and I'm not going to try to make this a long answer. When people are comfortable with the way they live, and I'm telling you, crackers make pain real comfortable, to the point where we don't understand we're in pain. We don't even understand we're suffering. You know, a lot of people on the plantation never imagined that we could be free. They were very comfortable in that situation. But there were a few individuals who decided to do something about the situation. I'm one of those individuals. Well, one thing I found out about your rank and file black folk is that we don't want to change our condition because it's going to require some work. And at this point in time, we're wards of the state. We allow whites to supply everything to us, from the food we eat to the air we breathe. We depend on whites to provide it for us. So if we get anything, if it requires us to work and it's relevant, we're not going to do that. So, of course, a brother or sister would say, well, reading that is not important because they don't want to do anything about that. They want to talk, they want to pontificate, but they don't want to really physically do anything about our situation. So we make excuses. But it's an absurd argument. It really is. And I wouldn't entertain that argument when I'm dealing with the black youth. We need to read. Because, as you know, the old adage says that, you know, if you want to hide something from black youth, put it in the book. I know what I know, and I'm able to come to you as a strong black man tonight because I open books and I read books.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next person that called in, last four digits, 5128. 5128. If you have a question, your line is open.
Thanks, Gus. Thanks, Kush. I just wanted to make a comment. Again, I'm another unsolicited praiser of the work that is put together by the Genie as well as PKV Visions. I've purchased several of the products. It's very professional, very, very informative, and I would like to do as much as I can to help with the black decency movement. So thanks, Kush.
Yes, sir. Oh, that was just a comment? He did have a question?
Yeah, just a comment.
Okay, I super appreciate that because that's what it's all about. And, you know, we don't really hear from people that thank us for work. We always hear from the detractors, from the distractors, from the people who are not interested in, like I said, doing anything about our condition. So I really appreciate hearing that. Thank you, brother.
Thank you for calling in, consistent listener. Before I hit the next caller, I also wanted to thank, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. If I'm not, please forgive my incompetence. She helped a lot. She works with positive commitments, and she a great deal in getting this program together. Sister Motosola, am I pronouncing her name correctly?
Yeah, Sister Matisla. Yes, yeah.
Thank you. She's
one of the officials in our movement, and like I said, there are a lot of other sisters in the movement, sisters and brothers who do this work, and they all are supportive. But generally, when you call us, you're going to speak with Sister Matisla, and yeah, she is excellent. She's excellent at what she does. So I'm sure she's listening. She appreciates that comment also.
For sure. Thank you so much. She was pitching emails and phone calls and everything to help make this broadcast happen. Thank you so much for your assistance. For sure. Person who called in, you are at a blocked number. Person who called with a blocked number, if you have a question for Kush, the Black Unifier, your line.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Oh, thanks, Gus. Yeah, Kush, I was gonna, thanks for coming on the show. And, yeah, very informative. What I'm going through right now, I was gonna ask you about some other things, but what I really want to know is, as far as how you got into doing this work, because it seems like the more serious I get, I guess, more informed or whatever, I feel like I'm alienating myself or building this kind of a wall around myself because I can't, you know, my people are getting thinner and thinner. So, I mean, it feels like people like, you know, us we're kind of like a minority. So, what kind of people wants to even do this kind of work? Do you think? And you can speak on yourself, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that question because, but like I said, we were talking about reading, and the way that I got involved in Black liberation was through reading. It piqued my interest in. I found out that we had been lied to. When I watched television, I found out it was just a pack of lies, but it was an extreme form of hatred. And in terms of when you decide to when you make a decision to help black folk, when you make a decision to become a black nationalist, when you start studying our history, when you start rejecting Western religion, which are nothing but murder cults, as Dr. John Henry Clark told us, Islam, Christianity, I'm not trying to offend anybody, I just got to tell the truth. When you make those decisions, brother, you're going to find yourself extremely ostracized. And make no mistake about that. Within your own family, enemies are going to pop up. And that's why it's such a tough deal for so many people, because they're isolated in their own families, or they're crazy, they're always serious. But brother, that's the price you pay. Freedom ain't free. And even within my own family, there are persons and individuals that think that Kush the Black Unifier is too serious. They think that Kush the Black Unifier is a hate monger. They think that Kush the Black Unifier has lost his mind. And that's going to happen to you also. But you can't let the fear rule. You have to decide that I'm going to do the right thing. And the right thing is to get us out of this, help get us out of this condition. Because we all owe. All of us are here. We're able to talk on this phone because of the efforts by our brothers and sisters who were freedom fighters. So we owe. We have to pay back. And the way we pay back is with again, surrounding ourselves with information, surrounding ourselves with the idea of liberation, the idea of self-determination. Basically, we have to save the race. I know it's a tall order, but we can do it because it's been done before. But we have to continue along the line of those great freedom fighters who also sacrificed so much. Again, just so we can get to this point. If nobody had fought for us, brother, we'd be still be in chains. And if you can imagine how the conversation would have gone down on a slave plantation, imagine someone saying to disbelievers that we're going to get free and then I'm going to escape. Brother, that brought about battles, untold battles. Harriet Tubman made the statement that she freed a lot of slaves. That's not the exact quote, but she said she could have freed many more had they known they were slaves. So you can't let the fear of being ostracized or isolated by your family or your friends, because believe me, brother, it'll be a slow process, but you'll develop some new friends, relevant friends, and your life will become a whole lot more wholesome and meaningful. And I hope I answered that question.
909, did you have another question? I just want to check.
Yeah, on the progressive. Yeah, I'm down, but on the progressive tip, a lot of I got into it by reading, and being upset about the lies, you know what I'm saying? And I read a lot of different things, and something I read about the samurai is that when they was disgraced or if they lost or something, they committed suicide. You know what I mean? So they had like a real strong, will to win, and not to take no shorts. So I just see my question is, as far as the progressiveness, when you see a lot of people losing, like you read about these ancient people, and then they lost, And so when people start talking about people that lost or losers or whatever, I have a hard time with that, being a very progressive thinking person. It's like we have to come up with new ideas, and everybody's talking the same old story, it seems like to me. So what do you think about that?
Well, again, for me, I'm a realist. And when I look at the number of us that are uneducated and are not even pursuing an education, junior high and high school dropouts, when I look at the prison industrial complex, when I look at the black female male female relationships, brother, we are losing. It's just stating the obvious, and it's obvious. I don't see how anybody can see any different, but the thing that you're saying is, when you saw the key word is progressive. If we're being progressive, then we have to admit our current condition, because if we don't admit that, then why are we talking? There's no problem. We're all right. Everything's cool. But the reality of it is that we're not cool. Africa is not cool. Haiti is not cool. But we have the ability to do something about our situation. We have the ability to do something for ourselves. There have been plenty of times in history where it looked like we were down for the count, like we look right now, and we've come through. But now we need sustainable change. We need sustainable change in our community that is going to allow us to think differently and to act differently, respond to this world differently, respond to this world like leaders. And so I say to that if you're a progressive thinker, then you'll be doing things that are progressive. And believe me, you'll become a magnet for other progressive types. Not only will you meet other progressive types, but you'll through your actions produce other progressive types through your activity.
Excellent questions. I believe this is one of the C.O.W.S investors, Mr. Nero. Mr. Nero, if you have a question for Kush, the Black Unifier, your line is open. Mr. Nero. Oh. Wait a minute. Difficulty sport line. Not open yet. Hang tight. It's not your end. It's my end. Again, MacBook Pro. As soon as the switchboard corrects itself, I will get your line open, Mr. Nero. I appreciate the patience. So that we're not wasting time with our guest, I will ask. You talked about the importance of manhood earlier and how so many of the racist white supremacist attacks are designed to erode black manhood and black womanhood. Can you share your definition of manhood as it relates to black people?
As it relates to black people, that's an excellent question. Black manhood is simply the protector, the law provider, the law originator. The black manhood is about strength. It's about consistency, and it's about being honorable, and it's about being I should say committed to your community, your family. And I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about to your race. That's what black manhood is about for me. And I'm trying to simplify the definition as much as I possibly can. But black manhood is maleness that grows into a person who is, again, a protector, a provider, and a law how should I say protector? A law, not just a lawgiver, but a law protector. So we protect black law. That's what a black man is for me. And there are a lot of small points in between, but I think that's the base of black manhood.
Okay.
That's why it's important. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please go ahead, sir.
That's why it's so important. Again, when you look at just Europeans militarily, they've always gone after the man physically. Now, of course, we know they're working on the sisters too. We know they have done a heck of a job on a black woman. In fact, when they say there's a saying that when you look at the condition of the black woman, then you don't have to ask about the condition of the men. So, in other words, when we see a bunch of sisters out with wearing clothes that aren't clothes at all, they're revealing their bodies, sleeping with any moving object, using coarse and disrespectful language, modifying themselves to look like whites, disrespecting their male children and their male counterparts. We already know what kind of condition the black man is. We know he isn't a man at all. We know that he's not protecting the community. He's not preserving the history and the culture. He's not culturally intact.
As long as the system of racism, white supremacy exists, are black males able to be men?
No. Maybe as individuals, but not collectively. That's why we must fight the system, because, again, for a black man to be a man, he has to be self-determining. So any man stakes his own part of the world out and decides that that's his, and he protects it. He nurtures it. But the bottom line is that we can't be men as long as the system of racism, white supremacy exists collectively. No. We don't have a home of our own. And, again, Africa is our home, but look at the fact that it's abused. Look at all the civil wars that's been started by slick Europeans that's occurring right there on that soil right now. Look at the resources being taken out of Africa. Look at the agenda of the Europeans to destroy Mother Africa, and the fact that it's an unprotected. It's a vault really, but it's not being protected. Whites can walk in, and other people can do what they want to do because there's no collective manhood. Like you look at China's becoming our new colonizer now. They say they aren't, but they are.
Wow. I believe I have things corrected. Mr. Nero, if you have a question for Kush, your line should be open. We'll see. We'll get you on here so you can get your question in. Still not working correctly. Again, MacBook Pro. I will get it. I will get it correct. Get Mr. Nero, and he normally has excellent insight and contribute Nero on. I wanted to ask, and I thought this was real important. The irritated Genie, he was on the program this past Friday, July 9th, and his third time on him.
You're breaking up. Hello?
Oh, can I be heard?
Okay, now. Okay, you were breaking up.
Okay. You can hear me now clearly?
Yes.
Okay. The irritated Genie, he was on the program Friday, July 9th, and he talked about how we have been conditioned to not see white people as our bitter enemies. And he said that in order to replace white supremacy with justice, we have to be dedicated to totally destroying the white race. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and specifically, how do you feel about white people? As a black male, presumably a victim of white supremacy, how do you feel about white people, and how do you feel about that statement, that in order to destroy the system of white supremacy, we black people have to be deadly serious about destroying the white race?
Well, that's a deadly serious comment, and of course, it's a true comment. The way I feel about whites, I tend not to call them people. It's because we have thousands of years of history with them, and we have never gotten along with whites any place on the face of the planet Earth. Whenever we've been in close proximity with whites, and nobody can disprove this, whenever we've been in close proximity, and even not, they have always been dominating and exploiting us. Always. That's the relationship that they have with us. So racism is endemic amongst whites. They're born with that kind of mentality. I don't believe they've proven themselves to be human. That's why I refer to them as whites. They haven't proven themselves to be human, and we have the history. Like a lot of times, if you go to, let's say, get a bank loan, you want to start your own business, you want to, let's say, get a job, you want to become a part of something, people check your record, okay? They check your record. And if your record is negative, then they say, well, you can't get this job, you can't get this loan, you can't gain access to this and that and the other. But with whites, because they control our thinking, they do some of the most vicious and subhuman things to us, and we still trust and believe in them because, again, they're the home of all of our religious belief systems. I'm talking about in relation to black people. So with relations to whites, I feel the exact same way. I talked to an elder, and he told me something a long time ago that brother's name was Al Martin. He said the earth's creatures and even the soil cringes whenever whites set their feet on it. And when we look at even environmentally, we call the earth Mutnet, from ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet. Mutnet cringes when whites set their feet on it because they're going to destroy it. Whites are like a cancer to planet Earth. That's how I feel about whites. They're a cancer to Earth and even outer space. Even the heavens. I think if there is a devil, whites are the father of the devil. That's how I feel about whites. And again, it's all based on what they have done, what they're doing, and what they will continue to do. Can you hear me? I can't hear you anymore. Hello?
Oh, can I be?
Hello?
Can
Hello?
I be heard?
Yeah.
Can I be heard?
Okay. Did you hear my answer?
Okay. Yes, sir. I heard you loud and clear.
Okay, because I didn't hear anything for like 2 minutes, anything at all.
Yes, sir.
But, and that's what I want to say. The whites, to sum it all up, whites are a cancer to the Earth's people and the Earth itself.
What is your response? Because I know a lot of non-white people, and this prompted when irritated Genie when he made a lot of the similar comments that you're making right now with regards to how he feels about white people. A lot of listeners, black people, they said, you know, that's so counter to our programming and our victimization in the system of white supremacy. You even talked about earlier how everything is designed to condition us to worship white people, to want to, quote-unquote, integrate with white people, be in bed with white people. You talked about the John Wayne movies. You identified with the white cowboys who were going to slaughter the Indian savages. How do you respond to non-white people who have been so thoroughly brash that they would just say that's terrible what you're saying? I can't believe you would feel that way about white people, and not all white people are racist, and it's just horrible for you to make a statement like that.
Well, you know, again, I have one word: Christianity. Whites gave us our religious concepts, and so we are made to feel guilty for expressing what and most black people, they will get upset when they hear that kind of thing, but they do things that sort of lend to the fact they understand history very well. Like, for instance, when you go to the voting polls, if you're a voter, and say, for instance, you know nothing about the candidates that are on the ballot, commonly we will pick the black person. Why? Because we're looking for solutions against the system of racism and white supremacy. If we go to church, which they say is the most segregated hour in this country, we choose a black church to go to. If we're in our right minds, if we go to school, what do? We choose a black school. So yeah, it sounds appalling and it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's a word that I want to use right now, and it's called anti-intellectualism. Del Jones said something very important. He said our solutions is not locked in this system. Somewhere it is trapped in our past and our contemporary intellect. So if we think about our contemporary intellect, we got to look at the fact that, again, I talked about the record. Nowhere on planet Earth have whites and blacks existed in close proximity and gotten along. The whites were always dominating, exploiting, and killing black folks. They've reddened the soil of planet Earth with black blood and people of color's blood. And before they were doing that, they were reddening their section of the planet with their own blood. So they have been absolutely disagreeable to live with anywhere on planet Earth, as Dr. Collins used to say. Absolutely disagreeable. Not sometimes, but all the time.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, please, sir.
So people, again, it's about fear. But see, fear. If we allow fear to rule, then we'll never make progress. We'll never make progress. There are some people who make excuses for whites enslaving us. Some black people actually believe that they did us a favor by bringing over us here and Christianizing us. You got a lot of preachers preach that on Sunday morning. That's anti-intellectualism. That's a person that doesn't understand history, and that's a person that doesn't want to be honest. But for me, it's not a debatable issue, but people have a right to say and think what they want, but the people that have been about race progress, the people who have gotten who have gotten tangible results have taken a solid position with regards to whites. And again, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called the white man the devil, not a devil, but the devil. And in my teachings, it sort of brought me to where I am now. I never forget that. I wake up every morning, as Chancellor Williams says, understanding that I have an enemy, a bitter enemy. Every morning I wake up with that.
I want to finish out this point because I feel this is very important. Mr. Nero, I do have your line open. If you could mute it for a moment, that way we won't have the distortion on the line. That would be super helpful. But your line is open. If you could just mute on your... Oh, thank you. I already got it. Thank you, sir. Okay, so I guess my two responses to that, because non-white people, and I want my listeners to really think about this. I've been saying I feel like the tone has got a little more aggressive on the program, and I want people to think about what guests who come on this broadcast say. What would your response be, number one, for the black people who say, well, it's not all white people, and you can't take a position like that because there are a lot of white people who have been very helpful to black people. You got John Brown, and you got white people who totally oppose slavery. You got white people who voted for President. Not every white person is committed to the destruction of black people.
Well, you asking me what I say to that?
Yes,
all whites participate in the system of racism, white supremacy. We've learned a long time ago that nobody gives up power. Power is not given up. White folks love their privilege. Now, that doesn't mean that every white person has the ability to put a rope around my neck and hang me. That doesn't mean that every white person wants to burn an effigy, burn LeBron James in effigy. What it does, though, mean is that they enjoy the privilege that they have all around the world. They got that privilege through bloodshed. They aren't complaining about that. And as far as good white folks, I like to see one. Black people talk about them from a very personal perspective. But I always ask people who have white friends, what is the nature of your friendship with whites? Are you an African in that relationship, or are you a sub-European Negro? Because a lot of times, once you challenge that relationship, tell your white friend that you want reparations. Or better yet, tell them that you want them to get out of Africa, to go back to Europe, get out of America, give the land back to the natives and back to the black people who were here before they arrived. And I think your white friendship will start to crumble and come apart. But again, it's not about individuals. When whites made the decision to enslave us, they didn't say, well, let's go to this particular tribe here or that particular tribe there. They made the decision based on there was a group of people who were the strongest people on planet Earth. But one of the things that was their biggest asset was also their biggest weakness is that they were very friendly and loving people. And it allowed them to trick us. Because we were so loving, they tricked us right on those ships. We weren't weak. We were just a loving people. And we still are like that to this very day, which is always confusing us because to the average black person, oh, they can smile. They have teeth just like I have teeth. They have arms just like I have. They walk just like they laugh. And so we confuse that with humanism. But again, let's look at the record, not of an individual. Let's look at the record of the entire race, because that's how we're judged. And if we're going to expect progress, then we're going to have to judge them on that same basis. That we're all of our progressive leaders, again, who have made sustainable changes, revolutionary, positive changes for our people. And then I have to look at something. You know, old folks used to say, if you keep doing what you've always been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've always gotten. So if we keep talking about all this trust and love for whites, we're going to keep getting what we've always got. If there's no argument there, keep loving your white friends, keep your white constituents, keep them in your business, and watch who spoils the revolution. Should Afghanistanians or Iraqis say to their brothers and sisters, well, it's just some Americans over here. All those soldiers over here, some of those soldiers don't want to take up a rifle and shoot and kill them. Some of them really don't. But that's what they do. If they make a decision to fight with the idea or defend themselves with the idea, well, we're only going to get the bad soldiers. We're only going to get the soldiers who want to kill us. Brother, every soldier, black, white, Chinese, Hispanic, or whatever, that's carrying that American or European flag is there to kill them. And again, some of them are in the military, and their purpose is, some of them are just interpreters. But their goal is the same goal. Some of them don't have the same capacity. Again, I always say, somebody invest in a rope, somebody invest in a rope-making company, somebody throws a rope over the tree, another person puts it around your neck, and another person slaps the horse on behind to hang you. They all participate at varying levels. And again, anti-intellectualism blinds us from seeing the truth. It's a harsh reality. I know it's harsh because through Christianity we haven't been trained to think that way. Even Islam, we haven't been trained to think that way. But if we're going to get out of this mess, we have to think that way. You can't pick and choose. The white man is the devil. Not a devil, but the devil.
I want to get your comments on this before I get Mr. Nero's question. And I also want to throw in, I believe 5128 and Mr. 909, I believe your mics are open. If you could just keep down the background noise, I wanted to do it because I'm having difficulties with the switchboard. So just keep down the background noise. If you can mute your phone, that would be great. And then we'll have the discussion as we move for the overtime period. But I feel like media plays a huge role, entertainment plays a huge role in how black people have been trained to think about white people. And you pointed out John Wayne films. I just watched Predators that just came out. And black people getting killed in a very gruesome manner, and white people even setting up black people to be killed as bait, really. And speaking of this openly, we just did this as bait to see what would happen. You do not see, and I believe Muhammad talked about this. You do not see films where black people are slaughtering white people. That's really something you rarely see. Black people just going through films, hacking up white people. And I think that has a big part to do with why black people, it is an anathema. It is unfathomable for a black person to think, I don't like white people. I see white people as the enemy, and I think they should be attacked. The fact that you don't see that in film, and conversely, you constantly get images of black people suffering and being mistreated. I guess, can you kind of comment on that?
That's absolutely right. Look at Dr. Weldon. She said racism and white supremacy made us glad that our grandparents were raped. When we look at movies, we have to go in there with an agenda. The agenda has to be about black progress. When we look at that film, we have to turn the brain computer on. Most pictures, just like you said, brother, are going to depict us as helpless. The only time we're strong is in the defense of racism, racist culture, in defense of white females, in defense of Europe. So whenever you go to watch the movies, we're being propagandized. So that's why it's good for the ones of us who still got our minds to go and check these movies out, these juvies, because we can clearly understand that they have an agenda for us. Yeah, the juvies have encouraged us to think like slaves. So when we see the movie and the horror films, you know, all the black people always talking about, well, you know, the brother gonna get killed first. Well, why do we think like that? We think like that because that's the way that these juvies have been presented to us. We see a brother in a movie, and there's a good sister, and there's a white female, and we know the brother gonna go with the white female, or have designs for the white female. Highly predictable, racist, the same plot over and over again because of people who won't read. People who won't study history are going to continue to go and just absorb it at face value. And it keeps us trapped in a system, a way of thinking that says to us, oh, you know what? The white knight is going to come riding on a white horse. He's going to save us. And so we respect whites because through movies, through mass media, they've proven to be our best friend. But in real life, when we turn the brain computer on, we know the story to be quite differently. And, you know, there's a whole litany of movies, practically everything you see, and even anything in the media, like right now, there's this commercial, I don't know if they're airing it where you are, but there's a commercial where a brother is talking about, we will fix this. So a black man is taking responsibility for the oil leak. I don't say spill because it's not a spill, it's a leak in the Gulf of Mexico. Whites did it, but they're always putting blacks in, and so we internalize that stuff. Yeah, we're always messing up. In the movies, if there's a strong black man, trust me, brother, he is corrupt. He is a nut. He is even Spike Lee in his movies always depict the black nationalist as some kind of nut, some kind of loudmouth, some kind of person who is not deserving of people's attention. And this stereotype has gone a long way, and they always allow the moderate Negro or the gay Negro to win or to be the hero or to be the sub-hero. So, yeah, the movie do so much. I do so much on the whole Hollywood scene and the propaganda. But we got to understand that, you know, Hitler used propaganda to his benefit. You know, they didn't just go out and decide, he couldn't just get citizens to decide to go out and take care of the Zionists. The idea was to propagandize them. They let people understand that their money was trapped in the Zionist system. They couldn't even get a loan without going through them. They understood they were being betrayed internationally by these Zionists that lived in Germany. So they put out commercials. They put out cartoons. The same way they did us, brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, the same way they did us, brothers and sisters, yeah. And the attacks followed immediately. The movies really show black people how to live. And it's really unfortunate because we internalize it in a way that we shouldn't be internalizing it.
Wow. Mr. Nero, if you are there and you have a question for Kush the Black Unifier, your line should be open. Feel free, sir.
Greetings. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Hotel. Brother Kush, I didn't hear all of the interview.
Yes.
I will have to listen to the archives. Just a quick question, and thanks for coming on the show. Sounds like you're offering a lot of valuable information. But just real quick, can you, I don't know if this question has been asked, can you please tell us the role that the black church has had on the effeminization of black males and the masculinization of black females? And then I'll mute my phone.
Okay. That's an excellent question. And we know that probably more than any other institution in the black community, let's just say the black church is the most powerful institution in the black community. Unfortunately, the black church is the most powerful institution in the black community. Again, because we don't think. And without a doubt, brothers and sisters that are listening, the church has been the number one factor in allowing white sex or homosexuality, as we will, to wreak havoc on our community. When we look at the black church, their role in protecting James Baldwin and like Bayard Rustin and A. Philip Randolph, they always ran to the black church. And this place where there were supposedly rules, this place where they supposedly had a mechanism for producing good people, they allowed these white sex offenders, these traitors to manhood and womanhood to exist amongst us, knowing that they had an agenda. And James and Bayard Rustin proved in the end, and he had a very close relationship with the black church. In fact, he was a representative of the black church. I know he was a Quaker and all that, but he was a representative of the black church. And they have always betrayed us. The black church only speaks to money. The black church only responds to economics. But they don't take the economic power that they have and do anything relative for the black community. That's why they haven't created schools that are isolated from this Europeanized racist teachings that they give our children. They haven't created institutions in our community that are going to liberate us. Only thing they do is make our punishment more comfortable. So they are very accepting of anybody. I'm telling you, if there were drug dealers out there who were giving a significant amount of money to the church would be selling crack right out the side door. You would walk in on Sunday, sing your songs, and smoke crack afterwards. But we got to look at the role of the black preacher. He's a compromised individual for the very fact that he's accepted a system that says the white man is God. And let's be real about that. When a black person closes their eyes and decide that they're going to pray to a God, they already know that if Jesus is white, and let's stop all this stuff about painting them black. Their invention, Jesus is white. And so when you close your eyes, naturally human beings understand that if the son is white, then the father is white. So you pray into a white God. And if he made the white man, the white male the man, and the white female the woman, where does that leave the black male? The black male is a boy. The black male is a slave. So naturally, that absolutely allows us to become effeminized, become less than protectors, become less than lawgivers, become less than people who are more concerned about our cultures that they strip from us, because they tell us that we ought to get rid of all that backwardness from Africa. Well, your culture is like your heart, and brother, when you cut your heart out, you cut your culture out. So we've cut our culture out. So it's natural that we can become anything. We can become homosexuals and lesbians. We can become freaks just as long as we put that money in that basket on Sundays. I mean, it gets a whole lot deeper than that when you start to really get into the teachings that are really stolen from the temples in ancient Kemetic and corrupted. I've been there, and they were stolen. That whole Bible story, the whole Quranic story, is all there right in ancient Egypt. And all you got to do is pay to get on a plane and go with somebody who knows what they're talking about, like Astro Kwesi, and the Kim Nuno which is there right now. And you can see where they got those stories from. The Europeans corrupted those stories because they couldn't follow the rules. They couldn't follow the dictates of African communalism. They don't have that ability. So I understand very clearly that the church manufactures homosexuality. The church doesn't have a problem with evil as long as that evil pays. And we all know that, of course, in the church, any type of black manhood, with the exception of the preacher himself, is looked down upon. We're expected to be followers, in a real sense, very feminized followers. And as far as the women, how much more of that our sisters going to take it? Not giving them an excuse, but how much more of that they're going to take before they start to assume those roles in order to protect themselves from survival. That's the whole reason why we see this explosion of the lesbianism, because the black male refuses to stand up and recognize that he has a pair. I hope that answers his question.
Thank you.
Wow. We have about 10 minutes left in the live stream. I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to share thoughts. You've touched on it a little bit already, but if you had more thoughts on how so-called hip-hop, how racist white supremacists are using this to further refine the abuse of black people.
Brother, we have to look at the fact that when you look at the average black child right now, and they have a pair of earphones on, or if they're in their vehicle, or if they're at home, they're tuning into hip-hop. And we understand that anything that whites get behind, that they support wholeheartedly, that they throw financial support behind, we got to understand that it's got something to do with our destruction. It's got a heck of a whole lot to do with our destruction. And we look at the system of hip-hop, they've embraced a criminal culture and conned us into believing that's progress, that we can become a progressive people through cursing out, spitting in our mother's wombs, and calling Tupac and Biggie heroes, talking about they were assassinated. Just because Tupac has some moments of clarity doesn't make him a nationalist on any level. He still called out black women bees and hoes and still exploited them. He still used the N-word. He did the exact same things that encouraged the use of drugs and encouraged backwardness. So we have to look at that as a real catalyst, right up there with Christianity. In fact, we say it's a new form of Christianity, slave hip hop, because if you look at Kirk Franklin and others like them, they've adopted that style and brought it right to the church. And we brought it hook, line, and sing. But, brother, we have to look at the fact that none of the hip-hop artists are talking about, they got rid of the public enemies, they got rid of the poor righteous teachers, they got rid of all those groups that and when I say they, I'm talking about the Zionists. They understood that it could really liberate us because it has the attention of our youth. But we know that in all of these, I got so much to say about it, but in all this hip-hop, all this slave hip-hop, which is really controlled by the Zionists, we got to understand our children are taking messages. And the message is keep doing what you're doing. All you need is money. All you need is a drink. All you need is a smoke. And all you need is women that are willing to do whatever you want them to do, and you'll be all right. They're not talking about progress. There was a sister, C. Dolores Tucker. Now, C. Dolores Tucker was in no way a conscious woman. May she rest in peace. But she really had a problem with hip-hop because she says we're the only people in the world, black men are the only people, that's why we can't call ourselves men, that will allow women to be called bitches and hoes, excuse my expression, brother. But that's what they do. And it's accepted. We're the only people in the world, which makes us less than men. And we accepted the fact that Tupac went right after her, attacked her with venom, said some horrible things about her, and attacked her in the media, and the media played it out. But the bottom line is that we know that we've got nothing good from hip-hop, the slave hip-hop, with the exception of a few groups that came out that were silenced. They're either silenced or they're compromised in a sense, like you take a group like Dead Prayers and how when they start off, they're talking real strong and speaking directly to the black community. But whites got a trick for that, too. They start coming out to the concerts. They dare you to speak the way you speak. And, of course, when they start seeing their revenue stream coming from light-skinned animals, their message starts getting more broader and more palatable for the people. But hip-hop is the whole genre of I can't even call it music. We'll call it death noise. For the black community to accept it is an acute act of psychopathic behavior.
Wow. I want you to take time to, again, give out information about Positive Kemetic Visions. The website, again, pkvstore.com. If you could give more information about your organization, how people can get in touch, events, anything that you all are doing that's coming up, if you could let us know about that, and any of the materials that are available for purchase at the website, again, pkvstore.com.
I thank you so much, brother. Thank you for this interview. I love doing this work, and my loyalty goes out to Positive Kemetic Visions. Let me just say that first and foremost. My love and loyalty goes out to this dynamite movement. We're not the only ones. There are a lot of other movements out there. You know about those other hardworking brothers and sisters out there as well. But Positive Kemetic Visions, we do a monthly community. Every month we do a community, so you never really have to ask about what we're doing because we're teaching our people how to address the situation that they're in and through our community. So if you want to give us a call, there are two numbers, 202-207-7886 or 202-207-7892. You can also call to book me to speak, and I pretty much will go anywhere around the country, actually around the world, to speak. Again, the number is 202-207-7886 or 202-207-7892. Our email address, if you want to send an email blast, is pkvfamily@msn.com. Again, pkvfamily@msn.com. Or you can look at the products, and there are too many DVDs we mentioned at this point, and they actually are college semester courses, actually. They're the equivalent of a whole college semester. You can order online, or you can look at the products and just read about them at www.pkvstore.com. And the name of the organization is Positive Kemetic Visions. And we really super appreciate you, brother, for having us on. I come not representing myself, but I represent Positive Kemetic Visions, the movement. And we really super appreciate it because we wouldn't exist without the support of the larger black community, people like yourself and your listeners who, whether they agree or not, have stayed on to listen to what has been said in the last 2 hours. So, again, that's www.pkvstore.com. We do respond to all messages via phone or if you write us or email. Our address is P.O. Box 62861. I'll say it slowly. P.O. Box 62861, Washington, D.C., 20029-2861. Again, so there are 3 ways to contact us, by web, email, or you can write to us. So those 3 different ways. But if you go on the website, you'll actually get our address and our numbers, and we can go from there.
Again, Prime Minister of Positive Kemetic Visions, Kush, the Black Unifier, and the website, again, pkvstore.com. Really appreciated the opportunity to have you on the program. Very thorough information, and definitely we would have you back on the program to continue the dialogue and share more information and hopefully shake away some of the confusion that black folks are laboring under as long as the system of white supremacy exists. Please continue the outstanding work that you're doing with Positive Kemetic Visions, and as I said, we'll definitely be in touch and look forward to having you back on the broadcast, sir.
Until the day I leave this planet, brother. Race first.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Hotel.
Context of white supremacy. Again, I want to thank everyone who tuned in to listen to the broadcast. For being patient. Originally, this program was supposed to air at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, but technical difficulties forced the program to start a little bit late. Thanks to our guest, Kush, the Black Unifier, for being patient, and he had ruffled it. I called him and let him know what was going on, and he said no problem. We were able to push the show down 30 minutes and rock and roll. I hope he shared constructive information. Man, I had quite a few in the news. He already touched on LeBron James. I was able to read more information about what happened with LeBron James, and man, just I already shared on the broadcast. White people have been threatening his family, threatening him with violence. Apparently, he attended Carmelo Anthony, who was another basketball player. He attended Carmelo Anthony's wedding and got booed. Just real incorrect behavior on the part of racist white supremacists. I believe Jesse Jackson, I saw one report where he came out and said that the the white person, Dan Gilbert, that's the white person suspected white who owns he's the majority owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He said that he was treating LeBron James like a quote runaway slave. It's gotten real wild with the whole LeBron James thing. I will share two reports that I saw that are relevant. Who called in, your line is open, so I'll share those two, and then we'll roll. One, in Ohio, I don't know, this might be related to LeBron James, might not, but this is a sorority at Miami University of Ohio accused of drunken debauchery at Underground Railroad Museum. This is in the New York Daily News. And actually, this is courtesy of Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. I would ring my cowbell, but, you know. A college sorority is facing a 2-year suspension after members allegedly trashed a slavery museum during a vandalism binge straight out of Girls Gone Wild. Members of the Alpha Xi Delta at Miami University and their dates are accused of a laundry list of bad behavior at the National Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, during a spring formal, the Associated Press reported. Accusations include smoking inside the museum, excessive trashing of the dance floor and bathroom, vomiting in different places, leaving puddles of urine in the men's bathroom, stealing bottles of booze from the bar, and smuggling their own alcohol inside the museum in flasks and plastic bottles. Things went from bad to worse as the night progressed, wrote Rhonda Miller, private event coordinator, in a letter to the university. Miller caught one male apparently planning to urinate on an early 19th century slave pen exhibit, she said. It is the second embarrassing incident involving a Miami University to become public in a week. The school's Pi Beta Phi sorority has already been suspended for 1 year following drunken misconduct and property damage at a local lakeside lodge, including guests urinating in sinks, men scrambling over the bar for drinks, and couples caught having sex. University President David Hodge said he has apologized to the Freedom Center and vowed a review of policies and punishments for the school's Greek organization. In a letter to staff and faculty Wednesday, he said he was appalled and embarrassed by the incident at the Freedom Center because it was a place of such cultural and historical significance to our community. These recent incidents of negative behavior are deeply troubling and embarrassing, Hodge wrote. Working together with the Greek governing councils, chapter advisors, chapter membership, and the national organizations, we are determined to live up to our values. Both sororities have been placed on probation by their national leadership as well. In a statement, Indianapolis-based Alpha Xi issued an apology to the Freedom Center, saying it was saddened by the inappropriate behavior of its members. The poor judgment and actions that some individuals displayed showed not only little respect for the facility, but for themselves, the statement said. Again, this is sorority at Miami University of Ohio. White people and drunken debauchery at a slave museum. The second report, this, man, oh man, I would be ringing my cowbell here, but MacBook Pro. Second report, this is Whoopi Goldberg defends Mel. He's just an idiot, not a racist. This is from Whoopi Goldberg. This is also Daily News. You can find all of these online. I think if you search like vandalism, sorority, Ohio, it'll pop up if you Google search. And the Whoopi Goldberg, I think this happened on The View. this morning for people. I guess if you watch